Hi, I'm Paris Walker, and I'm a freshman agricultural and applied economics major here at Texas Tech.
Hi, I am Allie D'Amico, and I am also a freshman agricultural and applied economics major.
Throughout the past couple of weeks, we have discussed multiple topics using Aldo Leopold's Land Ethic as a guide.
Today, we are going to discuss and debate some of the important topics we have talked about throughout our time in natural resources management.
From habitat conservation to disease and human society,
and from novel ecosystems to climate and climate change.
We have discussed and talked about multiple topics that we will be going over again in this podcast.
So, let's get started.
Aldo Leopold's Land Ethic essay is a call for moral responsibility to the natural world. The idea of a land ethic is simply caring about people, about land, and about strengthening the relationships between them.
Ethics are a moral sense of right and wrong. Ethics are demonstrated by the way people live their lives. When a person cares about someone or something, their actions convey that they care and respect and invite the same in return.
Aldo was a renowned American ecologist, and he introduced this topic of land ethic in his influential book, A Sand County Almanac. The idea was to extend the idea of ethics from human to human relationships, but also with the land and all of its inhabitants.
Aldo argued that humans should not consider themselves as conquerors of land, but rather as a part of the natural community. He emphasized that we need to respect all elements within the ecosystem. He famously wrote, "A thing is right when it tends to preserve the integrity, stability, and beauty of the biotic community. It is wrong when it tends otherwise."
The land ethic encourages responsible and sustainable relationships between humans and the environment. It advocates for treating the land and its resources with respect, and for us to understand that human well-being is deeply linked to the health of the natural world. Now, moving on to novel ecosystems.
Novel ecosystems are ecosystems that have been significantly impacted by human activities, which then in turn causes non-native species to be introduced and for there to be changes made to the environmental conditions.
Yes. Then these ecosystems can no longer resemble their original historical state. Novel ecosystems can come about in many different places, such as urban areas, agricultural landscapes, and some regions that are affected by climate change.
With these changes, novel ecosystems take this traditional stability out of certain areas.
This is all because as society grows, there are more changes due to human influence, so that the world around us can adapt to our lifestyle.
Some people may see this as harmful to the society, but I see it as a necessary action that needs to happen.
I completely agree with you, Allie. As the human society grows and changes, our environment needs to adapt with us.
That being said, we need to research and learn how to make these actions accordingly. If we do not focus and understand how to maintain these novel ecosystems, the outcome can be bad.
Yes, we need to learn how to advance resilience, biodiversity, and the functionality within the limitations of our new environmental conditions.
Society needs to learn conservation and restoration strategies. Recognizing and studying novel ecosystems can help inform us on more adaptive approaches to environment management.
I believe that Aldo Leopold would support learning to manage novel ecosystems, as it is morally ethical to learn how to maintain the environment along with the lives of human society.
Exactly. With learning to manage ecosystems, we live up to Leopold's view on land ethics.
With that, we have learned so much about managing our environment and the importance of learning how to maintain the ecosystem along with human society. Now moving into disease in human society.
During our time learning over disease in human society, we watched an educational video that opened our eyes to different topics.
My major takeaway from the video and the discussion in class was that we don't realize the impact and how common malaria actually is. Watching the video opened my eyes to the idea that economically stronger areas are not as badly affected by this widespread disease.
The video stated that there are 300 million cases per year, and 500,000 people will die because of it. She also informed us that there was a way to prevent it, and the prevention has been around for a while.
The cure or medicine that is able to stop or prevent the disease has been around since 1897. The main idea that I took from the video was that the areas with high rates of malaria are areas of low poverty. We are agricultural and applied economics majors and have learned how to look at the bigger picture of things in the economic standpoint.
These areas of low poverty are not able to get rid of malaria, meaning the health is low. They are not able to focus on finding resources to stop the spread of this nasty disease because they are focused on the main idea of being able to provide for their community.
Now that we summarized the video that helped open our eyes and gap the bridge between our major and NRM, we are going to discuss the topics of pandemic and epidemic.
A pandemic is an epidemic of a disease that has spread across a large region, for instance, multiple countries or continents affecting a sustainable portion of the population.
A pandemic involves the widespread of a disease across different geographical areas. Pandemics typically result in a high number of cases, and the impact can extend beyond health.
Pandemics affect social, economic, and political aspects. In most cases, human-to-human contact is the way infectious diseases are spread. This is why during the case of COVID-19, we had to quarantine for months as a way to slow down the spread of the virus.
These pandemic diseases are closely related when a large portion of the population has little to no immunity, leading to higher and faster spread. Pandemics are a matter of global concern, meaning international help and nations have to work together to help stop the impact of whatever the pandemic is over.
Now, an epidemic is the occurrence of cases of a particular disease in a population or an area that is greater than what is normally expected.
There is usually a sudden and significant increase in the number of cases of the specific disease within the certain area. Epidemics are often localized to specific regions or communities rather than widespread globally like a pandemic.
In relation to a pandemic, an epidemic is normally spread through human-to-human contact. It is also important to understand that an epidemic doesn't necessarily imply a specific threshold of cases. It refers to a situation where the number of cases is higher than what is normally expected in a given population.
An epidemic is able to grow or become a pandemic if it spreads over a large geographic area and affects multiple communities.
Hand in hand with diseases we talked about, the topic of the lethal gift of livestock.
The lethal gift of livestock is diseases that domesticated animals are infected with and are able to spread or give to humans. When we handle these animals, we have the possibility of getting infected with their disease.
Although the main idea of this term is negative, there could also be some upsides or benefits. We are able to grow our immunity as a society when we are exposed to these different diseases, making our future generations more immune.
So, although the main idea of the lethal gift of livestock can seem negative or overwhelming, we need to start looking at the bigger picture or benefits that come with it also.
Another big topic that we covered was the idea of virtual water.
Virtual water is an economic and environmental concept that measures the amount of water used to produce goods or services. This concept is particularly important when considering the water footprint of products in the global trade of water-intensive goods.
Some of the key elements of virtual water are water content of products, water footprint, trade implications, water scarcity regions, and policy implications. Water content of products is the concept that everything or every product, agricultural or manufactured, has a certain amount of water embedded.
Water footprint is the total amount or volume of water used in its production. Trade implications is the idea that when a country exports water-intensive products, it is essentially exporting virtual water products.
The water used in exporting these goods is embedded in the products and is transferred to the importing countries. Water scarcity regions import virtual water by importing water-intensive products.
This reduces the need to use their limited local water resources for these products. Policy implications lead to more sustainable water use practices and trade patterns. Overall, the concept of virtual water highlights water used in the world and the importance of sustainable water management practices and efficient resource allocation.
Coming from a small town where the population is close to 800, our source of water comes from groundwater. Groundwater is the primary source of water for most rural areas in Texas.
In Celeste, we have one water tower that provides for the whole town. After doing some research, I discovered that there are times when our water has tested positive for chlorine, as well as lead. This is concerning to me because I have yet to hear about this information.
Also, a town 5 minutes down the road from us has a boil ban quite frequently. I have always thought this was a little odd. If they were under a boil ban, why aren't we?
We have always been told that our water is bad growing up. From getting our hair done and the ladies saying our hair is always dried out, to being taught to never drink out of the sink. We have grown up knowing that there are issues with our water.
Although we are a small town that might not be able to afford a big change right now, hopefully soon we can turn to a different alternative to have a healthier water supply.
On average, people use around 50 gallons of water each day. From the water we drink to the water used when taking a shower, we use more water in a day than we realize.
Depending on the day depends on the amount of water I use. For example, if it is a clothes washing day, I'll on average use more water than if I only do my normal necessities. Brushing my teeth to taking a shower and the water used when I cook or drink water, I use more water than I realized.
I think the largest component of my water footprint is the amount of water I use when I take a shower. Some days I take more showers than necessary, even though I get that it is wasteful and I need to start conserving water.
When you sit and think about all the things that involve water use, you realize the reality of how wasteful you can be. I understand the importance of preserving water and have thought about the ways I can reduce my water footprint. From not taking showers when I get bored to turning the water off in between when I'm brushing my teeth. These are just a few examples of how I can reduce my water footprint.
Another big way to save water is to do less loads of laundry. Instead of spreading out my clothes to wash in multiple cycles, I can try and do bigger loads. There are multiple ways that we can all reduce our water footprints. These are just a few examples of how we personally can change our situations and day-to-day living to help reduce our water footprint.
Now onto climate and climate change.
Some people may get climate and weather confused with each other. Climate is the atmosphere's condition over long periods of time, while weather is short-term conditions in the lower atmosphere at any given day or hour in a certain area.
Climate causes things like global air circulation and ocean currents, while weather affects things like temperature and precipitation.
Global air circulation is the uneven heating of the surface of the Earth by the sun.
Throughout time, there has been changes made to our climate. These changes include shifts in temperature, precipitation, wind patterns, and many other aspects over a certain period of time.
Climate change typically happens from decades to millions of years.
While there are natural effects that cause climate change, such as solar radiation and volcanic eruptions, there are also human activities that cause changes as well.
Such as the emission of greenhouse gases like water vapor, carbon dioxide, methane, and nitrous oxide. There has been an increase in these gases primarily due to the burning of fossil fuels, deforestation, industrial and agricultural practices.
All of these things have increased the greenhouse effect. The greenhouse effect protects the Earth from extreme heating, and it deflects and absorbs solar energy.
It also retains infrared radiation from the Earth's surface.
All of these changes and in major climate change. Over the years, average global temperatures have been steadily increasing, as well as having altered weather patterns and more heat waves. It has also brought more extreme weather, including hurricanes, droughts, floods, etc.
Other causes are rises in sea levels and melting ice. With climate change, it causes glaciers and ice caps to melt, which then leads to the rise in sea levels. With climate changes, there adds disruption of our ecosystems. These changes can lead to disrupt habitats, endangering species, and even alter our ecosystems.
When we address climate changes, it helps us realize the effort we need to put in to reduce greenhouse gas emissions by changing to renewable energy resources and improving on our energy efficiency.
Once we adopt sustainable practices, we can learn to adapt society to help communities and infrastructure learn how to cope with the impacts of climate change.
With policy changes, technological innovation, and global cooperation, we can play a crucial role in working towards a more sustainable future for our planet and the animals and people who inhabit it. Now that we re-went over most of the major topics we have discussed in class, you can see that throughout this semester, we have learned a lot about natural resource management.
Although the semester is coming to a close, and it may be sad closing the chapter to this class and all of the interesting things we were able to learn, we were able to leave with a better understanding of bridging the gap between humans and the environment.
Once again, I'm Allie D'Amico.
And I am Paris Walker.
Thank you for listening to our podcast.
And thank you for helping us throughout this whole semester.